Disclaimer. The following episode contains spoilers for Spider-Man Far From Home. Don't go crying to your mum if we spoil it for you. You've been warned. Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. And this week, we may be far from home, but it feels like we never left. We're talking about Spider-Man Far From Home! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. My guest today has been on the show before. Give it up, Capers, for Jillian Diblasio!
Hi!
How you doing, Jillian?
Doing good.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm doing very well because there's a new Spider-Man movie, yay!
Yup.
Spectacular contribution to the conversation there, Jillian. Well done.
You know, I'm always there for you. Got your back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I mean, here's the thing though. Out of all the movies for them to pick to do right after Avengers Endgame, this is probably one of the best ones they could have picked.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this one is a good, closer to Phase 3.
Yeah, because, I mean, out of all the characters outside of the Iron Man movies, Peter Parker was the one closest to Iron Man. His death was sort of the almost final note of Endgame, so it makes sense to him picking up with... And also, it's good to have, a sort of man on the street perspective of what's happening to everyone ever since the snap, or as it's known in this movie, the blip.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really, that was really unique of them to do that, and I loved how they picked the high school also to kind of show what had happened during the snap, just because it's you don't really think about those things, how it's oh yeah, I've got a brother that was younger than me, and now my brother's older than me, kind of thing.
And what I like about it is, and we're going to get into this more, everyone seems just kind of okay, it happened, it was a thing, we're kind of dealing with it, but we're also, moving on. I think it really speaks to the human condition, you know?
Yeah.
So we're going to get into all of that, but before we do, there's one thing I want to talk about. Now, this isn't necessarily Marvel or comics, superheroes, or MCU related, but I felt the need to voice my concerns about this because it's taken the internet by storm. They have recently cast the new Little Mermaid live-action reboot.
For those things, because my opinion is pretty much all these reboots have been terrible, with the exception of The Jungle Book for me. So I'm just I'm at the point where I don't really care who they cast in it because it's going to be mediocre at best.
I mean, I am of the same mind as you, but a little bit of controversy was turned up because the person they chose to play Ariel is an actor who I'm not very familiar with from the show called Growish, which I haven't seen, and she is, in fact, black.
Yeah, I mean, white people are gonna find something to bitch about.
Yeah,
all the time.
And here's the thing, though. I completely agree with them. I understand why so many people are upset at casting a black woman to play a mermaid. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Why? In a movie about magical tridents, underwater kingdoms, evil sea witches with octopus legs, fucking mermaids, and motherfucking talking crabs, would you ever have a black person playing a mermaid? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, if they don't have Ursula being played by a purple woman, I'm going to be really upset. I'm hearing Melissa McCarthy might be Ursula, and I'm that's just wrong. I mean, purple people exist, and they need to be heard.
Purple lives matter.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. If you couldn't tell already, Capers, there has been some backlash to casting of an African American woman as the Little Mermaid, who was previously portrayed as white with red hair, And the response to that has been universally, shut up, it's a fantasy movie, you sillies. And I completely agree with that, because it is stupid. I mean, you're right. The movie's going to be bad no matter what. I feel bad for this actor. She's got to go through all this stupid racist backlash only to be in a movie that, I mean, it could be good, but it's Little fucking Mermaid and it's Disney. Of course it's not going to be good. Of course it's not going to be good. But there's no reason why she couldn't play this character. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. I'm surprised at the reaction because I'm not, but like at the same time, it's like.
Bear in mind that these are people who complained about there being a black stormtrooper. You know, we're dealing with that sort of idiocy.
Yeah, it's just really sad, the world that we live in, and how it's like people can't get over these moldings that they have of pictures, and it's just like, get over it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Actually, I tell you about it does matter because of representation, but specifically for Disney as well. Because, I mean, let's be honest. In the past, them and Reyes haven't always been the most sensitive. The portrayals haven't always been great. So maybe having a black person play a lovely fantasy character for the kids, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world in terms of representation. But so that's just, I wanted to get that out of the way. That's my piece said. We can now move on to Spider-Man Far From Home. I love this movie, did you?
I thought it was really good. It's just that at the same time, I feel like this movie is making me realize how burnt out I am from superhero movies in general.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. I mean, I don't personally buy into the whole idea of, like, genre fatigue and stuff like that. Just, like, but at the same time, like, if you're a bit bored of those kinds of movies, I get it. It's fair enough. But as long the movie's still good, though, so.
Oh yeah, no, it's still good.
Yeah, so maybe you just watch like a comedy or an action movie or something else in another different genre, and sort of make it a palate cleanse. You know, there's plenty of other movies. Yep. I mean, tomorrow I haven't seen them today, but tomorrow I'm going to see Yesterday and Toy Story 4. So I've got that to look forward to.
Yep, I'm definitely seeing Toy Story 4. I want to see Midsummer.
Ooh.
Or Summer, or whatever it's called.
Midsummer. Like, I'm pretty sure it's just called Midsummer, but it's spelled Midsummer.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to see that because I said, ooh, that looks kind of interesting. Ooh, it's a bit creepy. Oh, it's made by the people who made Hereditary? No, thank you. Oh, no, Scotty, no likey horror.
Yeah, no, I mean, I probably won't see that one in theaters just because I never see horror movies in theaters. But, like, once when it comes out, you know, for the public, you know, DVD, Netflix, or whatever, then I'll watch it.
Yeah, because then you can pause it and stop it and, like, give your brain a break from the constant sense of fear and dread. Get one of your dogs and hug it. You can't do that in a movie, otherwise they complain.
Yes.
Yeah. But, we really like this movie, and I think we're just going to talk about it. So, we hit the ground running in Mexico with Nick Fury and Maria Hill freshly unsnapped. I refuse to call it the blip. I'm sorry. The blip, stupid, snap, cool. Okay? Like, they couldn't call it that. I mean, okay, I understand that the world in general probably doesn't realise that an evil alien with a magic glove caused this whole thing. I don't think that information has been released to the public. But still, the blip? Come on, snap. I mean, even the word snap kind of snaps. Blip. I just imagine like someone throwing a pebble into a pond. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. I'm sorry. But anyway, Nick Fury and Maria Hill, they're in Mexico saying, ooh, there's a tornado, and the locals said it had a face. I guess this warrants the main guy, like the overseer of the biggest security and intelligence force in the world. A tornado with a face. Do you have no field agents, Nick Fury? No one to check this out before, you know, something else happens? Like, you couldn't just have 2 SHIELD agents rock up? Do you have to do everything? It's called delegation, Nick!
I mean, to be fair though, he's been like not doing anything for 5 years. He's been like blipped him or snapped himself. So he's probably like just, he's itching. He's itching to find another problem to solve.
Probably, yeah. And at that point, this giant rock monster, which for a brief second I thought was Sandman, but turns out no, shows up. And a second after that, fucking Jake Gyllenhaal shows up. Oh my god.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, his introduction was really cool, I thought.
Yeah, it was
nice, quick, to the point.
Yep, he shows up. He's in the full Mysterio getup. He says, "Hey, you guys better duck or something." Loom laser beams. Title sequence. And that's it. And that's all we get. And it's a pretty good setup for what comes later on with what's going to be established. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. And can I just say how much I like Jake Gyllenhaal?
He did this movie. Like, for me, he made the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he made the movie for me, but I really like him as an actor, and I really liked him in this movie. And the character, because if you know anything about Mysterio, you know the kind of person he is. And so it's interesting to see Jake Gyllenhaal play this sort of character, especially since in all the interviews and stuff he's been saying how he had such great chemistry and had such a great time with Tom Holland. But then again, is Jake Gyllenhaal. Like, he's known for getting on well with his co-stars and just having a great time.
Yeah.
And so a bit later on, we then cut to New York City, back to Peter's school, where the whole issue with the blip is explained by Betty Brant? Fucking alliterative names, Stanley. I know they're easier to remember, but it's hard to say sometimes. Acknowledge that. But explain what's happened, like, everyone sort of faded away, then 5 years later came back, and as you say, they stayed the same age. Now, at this point, I have to make a confession here, Capers. We here at Podcapers aren't perfect. We're not. We make mistakes. It happens. And at the end of our review of Endgame, Mark pointed out a little post-credit scene that we had, that it didn't make sense that Ned was the same age and still going to school as Peter, even though it's been 5 years. And it didn't really occur to me until now that maybe Ned was snapped as well. So our little quibble didn't make much sense. In any case, any lasting questions we may have had since Avengers Endgame have been cleared up, as you said before, students have to basically continue where they left off with school, even though technically speaking they're older, but they don't look older because they didn't exist, and their family members are 5 years older, and it's just a mess. But that's why Peter Parker's still in school. Who cares? Let's just get the movie started, okay? And Peter, meanwhile, is still having to deal with Tony Stark dying, and is really not happy about that. But the big question for me is, what was May Parker's reaction to finding out that her nephew that she's raised his whole life is in fact a superhero? And turns out she's fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly one of the things why I feel like this movie was good, and I can acknowledge it was good, but I didn't think it was amazing, is that I feel like there's a lot of emotional beats throughout both this one and the previous Spider-Man film where they just don't really let it sit like how I feel like they should. It's just not impactful moments like how it has been in previous Spider-Man films. And so this was one, and it kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Yeah, it didn't annoy me. Here's the thing. It's not necessary, okay? It's not something that had to be in the movie. But then again, technically speaking, when you eat food, it doesn't have to have flavor, as long as it's nutritious. But the flavor is what we like. So, it would have been nice to have them have a conversation. Maybe she's not okay with it. Maybe she's okay with it, but still having to come to grips with it. Maybe Peter could acknowledge it in a conversation with Ned later on, like how so much has happened, he's lost so much, and May finding out that he's Spider-Man, which was supposed to be it was a big cliffhanger at the end of the Spider-Man Homecoming. So, you need to kind of acknowledge it, but no, she knows about it. She's fine with it. She's like recruiting her nephew to appear as Spider-Man for her homeless charity thing. Okay, fine. And that's basically it. And again, I brought this up last time. I brought it up a couple of times, but I feel the need to say it again. Perhaps if they talked about Uncle Ben at least once, we could have a conversation like this.
Yeah, that too. Oh my God, yes. It's like I'm so tired. Like I get why they're not doing it because we've seen that whole arc twice already, but it's like I'm just so tired of them pussyfooting around the situation.
Her husband died.
Yeah, exactly.
The man who raised him died, and they just do tiny little things, background things that are blink and you miss them. Like when he goes on his trip later on, he has a luggage that is like has a name on it, like a BFP, which we can only assume that stands for Benjamin, whatever his middle name is, Parker. And like little things like that are cool, but I mean, okay, here's the thing. I never lost someone that close to me. I've lost people in my family, but no one that I was exceptionally close to. But here's the thing: if I did, it would probably affect me, and I'd probably talk about it a couple of times. Because as I know the people who were close to this family members of mine definitely are going to talk about it. So, it's worth talking about. Not to any great length. Not to go on and on and on about it. We don't need to see any flashbacks. We don't need to redo the origin story, as you say. I understand why they avoided it in the first movie. I get it. I do. But now, maybe just a little bit of lip service as to the reason why Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And
I really thought that they were going to at least bring it up in this movie because it ties so well with the idea that he's just so desperate to find a father figure and finds it just like it's just a struggle for him because he loses people that he loves, that he looks up to as a father figure. And then it puts it more into perspective when Mysterio betrays him because it's just like, it was like that was his new father figure. He's just like so desperate to find one to replace what he's lost. And it's like, that's why I liked it. Made sense to like bring in Tony, but it's like you should at least mention Uncle Ben too. I mean, he's the one that kind of started the whole thing and like why he first place.
Yeah, it's just something. You don't have to go on about it. Just something. Just a little something. But we don't have time for that. We don't have time for meaningful conversations about emotions and lost loves. We've got Happy Hogan shenanigans. At the Happy Hogan jokes. Okay, I do like Happy Hogan. I do like Jon Favreau. I like that he's in this movie. It makes sense that he's in this movie. And the stuff he does is funny. So, I joke.
Yeah, no, he was good.
Yeah, he was good. But he turns up and says, hey, just so you know, Nick Fury is going to call you. And Pete's like, I don't want Nick Fury to call me. And he's like, no, well, he's going to call you. Well, I'm not going to answer. Oh my God, he's phoning you. I'm not answering. You ghosted Nick Fury. And it's funny. It's funny. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting because I read the Ultimate Spider-Man comics when I was younger, and Peter's relationship with Nick Fury was actually a pretty close one, a very interesting one in terms of power dynamics, but also sort of mentor-mentee sort of thing. So it's very interesting that now they're bringing in Nick Fury because, Iron Man's gone, and as you say, father figures, this guy's desperate for them. It's a whole thing. So, and then, and this happens at the fundraising for homeless thing that I mentioned, and so he goes out and faces like the press, though I guess are there, and they bombard him with questions about Tony Stark, and he kind of freaks out a little bit, which he never does later on in the movie ever again, except this one thing which we'll come back to later. And I feel like, here's the thing, they could have laid into the whole PTSD, losing someone close to him thing again and again. It would have tied into Ben Parker and all that sort of stuff. But they kind of already did that in Iron Man 3. So I don't know. Maybe there's a different way they could have done it. But if that's the case, if they're not going to go that route, then why even have that mini freak out he has there at all? I don't know.
I think it's because they do it to set up the fact that like people are expecting him to essentially be the new Iron Man, and like it's like everybody wants a new Iron Man, and so it's just people trying to desperately find a replacement, and they're just latching on to Peter, and Peter's just like he's not ready for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, when you say that, yeah, because that's a recurring theme throughout the movie. The idea of Peter assuming like the mantle, the role of Iron Man that Iron Man had, which is an impossible role to fill, as gets mentioned later on in the movie. But he doesn't have time for that because he wants to just like take a little break from being Spider-Man and just have a bit of a normal time. And so he goes on a 2-week school trip to Europe. Now, I will admit I don't know that much about the American education system apart from all the horror stories I hear. But I'm pretty sure this small, well, maybe not that small school in New York could really afford a 2-week trip across most of Europe. Am I wrong in this?
I mean, no. Actually, well, yeah, you kind of are. I mean, I went to high school in New Jersey, and it was actually pretty common. I mean, we never had a 2-week trip, but it was common if you took like a language class, then you would get to go during spring break. If you were like in the honors class, so it would be a small group, you would get to go for a week to the country that it was associated with your language. So I took Italian in high school. So spring break, sophomore year, I got to go to Italy.
Oh, where in Italy did you go to?
We went everywhere. Like,
Oh.
yeah, like we started in Rome, then we went to Florence, we went to Venice, we went to, like you do like one of those standard tours and you just go. We went all through the country. So, and I know my sisters, they also did a trip where they went to France and Spain. So, I mean, because it was like they were doing like the French class with the Spanish class, so they kind of mixed the trip. And I do know somebody else that also went to Japan.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's pretty common at least in the East Coast. I don't know about anywhere else in the country, but I do know that was like a thing.
Because I mean, when I was at school, we had trips to, mainland continental Europe fairly regularly for various reasons, not just for language reasons, but for other reasons. I went on several school ski trips and music trips because I was in the orchestra. We actually went to Italy for that. But here's the thing: Europe, like, it's right by us. We're there, so it's fair. It's not difficult and not incredibly expensive for us to go there. And I just wasn't sure if that was feasible for this school, but apparently it is. So
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like classmates, and then like some people obviously can't afford it, so they wouldn't go, didn't want to go. So then they just kind of try to find people that can afford to go on the trip. And I mean, I was just lucky in the fact that my parents were like, yeah, we're tight on money, but you should really like go out of the country just to like see a different country. And
because Canada doesn't count.
Yeah, and it's not like commonplace either for these like other language trips. Like that Italy trip that I mentioned, that only happens like it's not like it's all the time happening. It's just like a once in your high school, depending on what year you are, like that's when you just like jump on that moment kind of thing. And then like all the other trips, if you have school trips, are going to be like local, like ski trips or historical landmarks around the area, that sort of thing.
I see. Okay, but good for Peter then. He gets to go on a 2-week trip to all of Europe. And he's very excited about this because he wants to, in several stages, to eventually reveal his romantic feelings towards Michelle. When did that happen? At what point did he suddenly decide that he liked Michelle? I mean, I'm fine with that, but when?
I mean, again, it's just one of those things where it's like, again, it's like I feel like they're just trying to hit the beats that and they're not letting these moments and this progress feel organic because they're trying to just it's sort of like Full Metal Alchemist, the anime, like versus Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And I feel like with this section of Peter Parker's life, his Brotherhood, they like tried to breeze through the first 10 episodes of the original series in like 3 episodes just so that they could get to the good stuff like that they hadn't done yet. And I feel like this is Spider-Man's equivalent of that. They're like, we just gotta hit these emotional beats and just get through
set
them
up,
so we
set
can
up,
get
set
to
up,
the
set up,
good
set
stuff.
up, let's
yes,
go.
Exactly. And it doesn't have time to breathe and actually feel organic.
Yeah, I mean, last time we saw Peter's relation with Michelle, they were friends, pretty good ones, and that was it. And you may notice, Capers, that I am calling her Michelle and not, as the movie keeps trying to call her, MJ. Because MJ is reserved for Mary Jane Watson, not Michelle. If you want her to be Mary Jane Watson, great. Zendaya's great for that, and it's a great character, great new take on it. Fine, 100% okay. I think we've established that I have no problem with black actors playing previous redheads. But you gotta give her the proper name, because her name is Mary Jane, not fucking Michelle. It's annoying. It's annoying. This is why I was so confused at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming. Wait, so is she Mary Jane? Is she not Mary Jane? Was that a reference to Mary Jane, or was that a reveal that she was in fact Mary Jane? Like, just something. Fucking get her to change her name. She's quirky. She'd do that. Everyone called me MJ, so I decided to call myself Mary Jane. Deal with it. I don't care how you do it, just fucking do it. Like, I'm fine with surface changes, but at least keep the characters' fucking names intact. We're not in a fucking Incredible Hulk scenario where we call him like David Banner for some reason. Just call her Mary Jane! Just do it! Can you tell I'm annoyed?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that's coming across. I mean, the character is still... I feel bad saying that because the character is still great. I really like the character. And Zendaya...
Yeah, I love her.
Is it Zendaya or Zendaya? I don't know.
I say Zendaya.
I'll defer to you on this then. Zendaya is a great actor and she does the role really well. I have only one issue, and it's the name. God. Anyway... so he's got a thing for her, and they're on the plane getting ready to go, and returning is what's-his-face's Flash, and Martin Starr as the teacher, glad he's back, and also new character, J.B. Smoove, plays another character, who actually, another teacher, who actually he isn't actually a new character, because he was in a bunch of, like, car commercials with Tom Holland being Spider-Man.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I will say yes.
It was like Tom Holland and J.B. Smoove, who plays one of the teachers in this movie, Mr. Dell, or whatever his name is, Julius Dell. He was in a bunch of, like, I think, were they Audi? Probably were Audi. Like, Peter Parker takes driving lessons short. It was basically a car commercial. And, like, he was the driving instructor. And they liked him so much, and him working with Tom Holland was so great that they brought him back for this movie.
Oh, that's cool. I had no idea.
I mean, I didn't either because I hadn't seen those commercials. Because
I was like, as soon as you were talking about car commercials, I'm like, I don't have television, so I don't know what you're talking about.
They're available online, but you gotta look them up. And
yeah.
I think I saw them a couple of times, just like on my feed or whatever, and I was just like, you know what, no, I love Spider-Man, love Tom Holland, love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I'm not going to watch something that's essentially a car commercial. I'm not going to do it. And, because I don't know the car, what do you take me for? Come on. So I just ignored it, so it was kind of surprising. It's surprising on 2 levels, actually, that, and also, I had heard tell that J.B. Smoove was going to be in this movie, and I was led to believe that he might be potentially playing J. Jonah Jameson. So it was kind of surprising to see him not as J. Jonah Jameson, but still in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I saw him like appear, I kind of got the Jonah Jameson feel from him. I was like, yeah, he kind of feels like that guy, you know? But it's like, but then he wasn't that, and I had no idea about this rumor, and I did get that kind of impression from him.
I think he could have played the character well, but he didn't, so we don't get J. Jonah Jameson in this movie, unfortunately. Oh well, c'est la vie. So they're on the way to Venice, and they go to Venice, a city that's lovely and beautiful and full of amazing culture, and in a couple of decades it'll be underwater.
Yep.
'Cause, yeah, it's sinking, Capers. So if you ever wanted to go to
Like,
Venice, like, now's the time to go, because in a couple of years it's gonna be gone. Jeez. And so, on the plane ride over there, actually, Peter starts a convoluted plan to sit next to Michelle for the trip over instead of this other guy who we don't like because he's not Peter. And the movie goes to extreme lengths to make unlikable when they really didn't have to. But anyway. And unfortunately, it gets mixed up, so he gets sat next to Martin Starr the whole trip, and in fact, Ned gets sat next to Betty Brant. And one of the funniest things about this movie is that by the end of the plane ride, they're a couple. Ned and Betty are a couple, like they are in the comics, but better, because, you know, less abuse. And it's hilarious and sweet, and it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that I really liked about this movie is I feel like out of all of the Spider-Man incarnations, not including a tier of its own, but in terms of the live action ones, I feel like this one really nailed down the high school awkwardness the best out
Yeah.
of all of the incarnations, and especially through this relationship and Zendaya's character with and her chemistry with Peter Parker. Like I just felt like it just actually felt like high school awkwardness watching it.
Yeah, it brought to mind many an awkward memory of mine from like 3 weeks ago. I really haven't changed that much, if I'm being honest. But it's very funny, and as you say, nails that sort of thing. They land in Venice, and they're just like, hey, take in the sights, Venezia, lovely. And, uh-oh, then, out of nowhere, pops, like, a water demon, a giant fucking water thing, which they reference later as potentially being Hydra Man from the comics. That's a nice little thing. It's not that, though, but I thought that was a cool thing for them to mention. And Peter's like, oh shit, you gotta get everyone away, Ned. Well, I'll put on this fake, like, masquerade mask and try my best, because even though Aunt May packed my suit, I forgot it in the hotel, because why would I wear it when I'm out and about? And I couldn't help but think, like, okay, yeah, great, masquerade mask. Just, like, do what you did in the comics and put a bunch of webs on your face.
Yeah, well, Peter, he's getting
It's not that
he's
bright.
getting used to his ingenuity, quick improv thinking skills.
Yeah. Not great at thinking on his feet. And so he tries to,
Yeah.
he tries to fight the water elemental, as it becomes known, but doesn't do too great. But then, who turns up but Mysterio? And, props to the people making this movie. It's hard to make a man who flies around on a big lime green gas cloud with a fishbowl head on his head just and make him look cool. It's hard to do that, and they managed.
Yeah, Mysterio was definitely like all of the fight sequences that he's in, which are like pretty much all of them, they're really good. Cause I mean it just looks so cool.
It looks like, well, people have done like designs of Mysterio, try making him look cool. I myself actually designed ages ago when I first heard about the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal was going to play him. I first heard about that. I thought, ooh, that sounds really cool. And what I did was I created some designs for that, which I think turned out pretty well. I'm actually going to send you them on the Skype chat right now, just so you can get an idea what we're talking about. And because yeah, that's a valuable use of my time. And it's because it can look cool, even though the original didn't really. You know, I mean, it looked fine for the 60s and it's been updated since then, but they made him look really, really cool, and I'm glad they did, because that could have been so easy to look silly, but they just ran with it. And he has a pretty good get out clause later on in the movie for his
Oh yeah, that does look really cool.
You just got the images. Thank you. I'm so glad you agree.
I'm also like trying to like in the background figure out technology. I'm like, oh crap, how do I go back to chat? Like, I'm just like the worst when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I just wanted to show off. Look at this thing I created like a fucking year ago. It's actually probably longer than that, but I don't know. That's just something I came up with. And so he turns up and he takes care of the water elemental. Peter tries to stop a tower from falling over and succeeds in getting his head banged on the bell inside the tower twice before it just falls over. Not a great day for Peter Parker. And they sort of meet up, and I thought that when he showed up and says, "Hey, I can help," Mysterio would say, No, just get out of it. You don't know what you're doing. But he says, okay, just get the civilians out of here. It's fine. And it's just like, okay, this guy thinks on his feet really quickly. Okay, cool. Something that Peter can't. And then it's like, who is this new mysterious superhero? And they dub him Mysterio, which is Italian for mystery. Fair enough. And Peter's like, oh, wow, what a day. I guess I go to my room now. And then Ned walks in and gets shot with a tranq dart by Nick Fury, who is not happy that he's been ghosted.
Yeah, I mean, that part, it was funny, but at the same time, it's like, I think that part was like in one of the trailers or something. So I was like, so it's like one of those things where it's like, you know it's coming, but it's still a pretty funny moment.
This is why I avoid trailers for Marvel.
You know what? I was doing that really well. I was really on top of it. I hadn't seen the Homecoming trailer. I'm gonna, if I confuse the, like, it's just there's H's in both titles, so like it's just gonna happen. But yeah, and then I just got bombarded with this one trailer, like it was everywhere, and so I caved and I just watched it.
Your will is weak.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, just leave me alone.
Because I got the same thing in the lead up and the last few days of it being released. I was getting bombarded with like 15-second trailers on YouTube, and I always, quick as a flash, mute that shit, scroll down so I don't see anything, wait it out because you can't skip it for some reason, and then continue watching my dog memes, you know? So
yeah.
I mean, you do have to be quick, especially in the cinema. I've spoken before. What I do is I quickly get out my phone and put my earbuds in and just turn it up loud and just close my eyes and just wait for it to be over. You have to have some tricks and you have to have some will, but you manage it. So thankfully, I was able to enjoy the scene in its full, especially when all the people keep knocking on the doors and Nick Fury keeps getting interrupted.
Yeah, that was so funny, and that is like pretty much what happens when you're going away on a school trip in another country.
Yeah, there's no privacy. What are you, insane?
Yeah.
And so Nick Fury is tired of the interruptions, so he takes Peter out on a romantic gondola ride where he gives him Tony Stark's glasses. It's like, no, it's a nice thing. And Fury says, okay, so you're going to need to like step up because you're getting into a much bigger world and you're going to be like a superhero and an Avenger and shit like that. And I'm thinking like, okay, like I get it, Nick, I get it. You want like a bunch of all the superheroes have basically been scattered since then. Some have died, some have gone off world. Everything's kind of up in the air, so you want something to hold on to. But the person you're going to for that is a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
But even that, here's the thing though, that all gets explained later. We're going to hold off on that. All the decisions Nick Fury makes in this movie make complete sense by the end. Just, you're going to have to bear with us, capers. Trust us. And so it turns out these glasses have an artificial intelligence in them called Edith, which stands for Even in Death, I'm the Hero. Or Even Dead, I'm the Hero. And it's just like, Tony, even when you're dead, you're funny. God. And Peter's like, okay, like, thanks for the glasses and everything, but, like, I don't want this. I don't want anything to do with you. And, like, I'm not going... and then he gets taken to this underground lair in Venice with Nick Fury, Maria Hill, this guy, Dimitri, who might be the Chameleon? Like, we don't know, because the Chameleon's real name is Dmitry Smerdyakov, and that's, I think, what he's credited as. So that's either a reference or a setup for a later villain, who knows. And also Mysterio, aka Quentin Beck. And Quentin says that he's in fact from another dimension. I think the dimension name he says is 883.
I don't remember the number.
And he says that he came to this dimension 616 after a bunch of elemental creatures destroyed his home planet and killed everyone he's ever known and loved. Here's the thing, though. The use of numbers to denote Marvel universes is not a new one. The original Marvel Universe, the main timeline of the comics, is called Earth 616, which is what he calls this universe. Here's the thing, though. The Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't called 616. It's called Earth 199999. That's 5 nines.
Yes.
So...
And yet I still fell for it.
Yeah, because... stuff gets revealed later. We're not gonna give it away just yet. And he seems to be a pretty chill guy. Gets on well with Peter. Doesn't quite tolerate the fact that he was basically kidnapped by Nick Fury, but is still working well with them. And they're clearly keen to have another superhero at their beck and call who, knows how to deal with these elementals. But Peter says, "Nope, I'm not going with you. I'm not. I know that the next one is like turning up in Prague, but I'm not going to Prague. I'm sorry. I'm going to Paris. See you guys." And then later on, the next morning, one of the teachers says, "Hey, turns out we've been upgraded. We're going to Prague." Oh, whoops. Because when Nick Fury wants something, he gets it.
Yes, that he does.
And while on the bus ride to Prague, Peter fiddles about with Edith, and it turns out that Edith has access to fucking drone strikes that is apparently is very easy to arm. Like, really? Really, Tony? I know you play a bit fast and loose with the whole, explosive weaponry thing, but you didn't think to maybe make sure that Peter Parker, who you intended to give this powerful, destructive weapon to, might just have a few fail-safes just in case? Because he nearly kills a classmate and his whole team, his whole class, very, very easily.
Yeah. Manual of some sorts. Maybe that was built into Edith and he did not access them before trying it out.
I mean, when he gave him the fucking Spider-Man suit, his first suit that had all these extra features in it, most of them were locked off, including the insta-kill mode. Where was that? But who knows? And so he's got Edith now, and he uses it to delete a photo of him that said classmate who's getting close with Michelle took whilst he was taking his trousers off in front of a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent that was giving him a new suit. And that whole setup was just kind of contrived for me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I didn't really need the kid that is interested also in Michelle to be such a bad person. Yeah. That whole thing is it was just kind of weird.
Yeah, and he's not even that bad a person. Yes, he takes a photo of Peter with his trousers off, but he does so because he knows Peter likes Michelle, and he thinks that Peter's getting it on with the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and thinks that Michelle deserves the truth. It's not the nicest thing in the world to do, but it's not the worst either.
Yeah, I also mean for stuff that he like his attitude kind of like later on in
Yes.
the film. Like I didn't really need him to become kind of like a jerk
He, he,
sort of thing,
he
you know?
calls out Peter on his constant disappearing acts, and everyone just kind of like turns on him and something like that. And it's again, it's just kind of contrived. Honestly, I think you could have cut that character out of the movie, and it would have been
Yeah.
fine.
Yep.
But anyway, and so they're in Prague now, and Peter's like, okay, fine, I'll help, but only if we get all of my classmates, my friends, out of danger. And so, like, okay, we can do that. We'll send them to the opera. Which, of course, they immediately duck out of because it's the fucking opera. Who cares? Not to diss opera fans that may be listening. Vincero! Vincero! I can't do it because, obviously, yeah, I can't. And so, while this is happening, like a big party is happening, like this festival or something or other. And then the fire elemental turns up, and Mysterio says that this is the elemental that killed his whole world, so it's a big thing for him. And so they're fighting. Peter gets a new stealth suit, which I'm just gonna say looks fucking badass. It's like if you combined like Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell's costume with Spider-Man's. I think it looks kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely looked cool.
And they fight this elemental. It looks like he might win the day. But there comes a point where Peter tries to save Ned and Betty, who are on this Ferris wheel sort of thing, and webs onto something that we can't quite see, and tears something else off of it. And that's the moment where if you had no idea about Mysterio's character, you might think something's up. But the day is saved. Mysterio appears to have killed the creature and himself along with it, but manages to survive. And everything's good, and it's like, yay! And then Nick Fury chews Spider-Man out, like saying, oh, you're a loose cannon, we don't like you for some reason. And it's just like, dude, I thought you wanted him on your team. Maybe berating him about how he's not ready for this responsibility to be Iron Man isn't the best way to get him on your team. And I feel like at that point in that argument, Peter was going to turn around and say, yeah, I'm not ready. I told you that. I don't want this. You say you don't want me on your team? Great, fine. I get to have a normal life. Awesome. Happy day for me. Like, what side are you on, Fury? Think about your argument before you make it. But Quentin says, okay, you know what? Let's get a drink. Let's talk actual properly now. And they go to a bar, and Quentin's like, okay, so that's what Fury wants. That's what S.H.I.E.L.D. wants. That's what Tony Stark wanted. What do you want, Peter? And Peter says, I want to go to the Eiffel Tower and, kiss Michelle. And he's like, yeah, great. Do that. You're allowed to have that. And it's a really sweet moment. And Peter then says, you know what? I'm going to give Edith to you. And it's like, what? No, that's not what I was talking about. But it's not. And he's like, no. I think Tony Stark wanted me to give this glasses Edith AI to you. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it to you. And Beck's like, okay, you sure about this? Yeah, I am. I'm going to go get it on with Michelle now. Bye. And Beck's like, bye. And then, it's a trap! Dum bum bum. It was all a trick. And the moment when we see the holograms fading away, like, okay, so in the comics, Mysterio is a master of illusion. He uses holograms and hallucinogenic gas and various special effects sort of thing to trick people into believing certain things is going on and defeat his enemies. So if you knew anything about that, you knew this was coming. But it's still a cool reveal.
Yeah, no, this reveal was really cool. And also, it was like kind of sad for me because I mean, this is the point of Mysterio, and this is why I think Jake Gyllenhaal is like so good in this role and why he kind of made the movie for me. It's because it's like, I mean, I didn't really know the comics that well going in, but you could just tell by like the trailers and stuff like that Mysterio was like a villain and he was not going to be good, but so charismatic and like he just has this presence throughout the beginning half of the film, and I'm just like, can you just maybe not be a villain? But then he is, and you're like, oh, okay.
I think that's part of the brilliance of the movie because it works on two levels.
Yeah,
You know, Peter wants to believe in him because he wants a father figure, and we want to
yeah.
believe Mysterio's a good guy because he's such a cool character that's played so well, and that makes it all the more heartbreaking. But what's interesting is the reason why he's doing all this. Turns out Quentin Beck, not from another dimension, very much of our Earth, but used to work for Tony Stark. He developed a holographic technology that had limitless applications, and what did Tony Stark do with it? He renamed it Bath and made it into a therapeutic thing that we saw in a previous movie. And it's just like, it was a Civil War. Civil War, we saw that. I thought, oh my god, that's a great callback. Holy shit. And Beck didn't like that, apparently confronted Tony Stark about it, and was then fired. Oh shit, sympathetic villain alert, I'm totally on his side. And it turns out all these people who are working with him, and he's got like a whole team of people working with him, are characters that have been affected by Tony Stark and his sort of, shall we say, lackadaisical managerial skills. Like there's this one character that we saw in the very first MCU movie, in Iron Man, getting shouted at by Obadiah Stane. They got their actor back to play the same character.
Yeah, that was cool. Another thing that I really appreciate about these two Spider-Man films is that the villains are, the everyday man. They're not just some like super villain that just kind of pops out of nowhere. Like they each have a purpose, and like both times it's been like a disgruntled worker. like I can so get behind them to a degree.
Because a lot of Spider-Man's villains were people that just kind of had a rough shake in life. Like Electro wasn't the nicest guy in the world, but he was an alright guy, and then he accidentally got electrical powers. Green Goblin he was a millionaire industrialist, but he wasn't that bad a guy. He was just kind of like an absent father. It was his worst quality, and then he accidentally got dosed with a bunch of chemicals and went insane. And there's many more stories like that, and it's just like, these people, they kind of suffered in life, and sometimes, people, it's a great thing, like, Peter Parker, he suffered in life, but he became a better person for it. These people suffered in life, and they became worse people for it. Because there's different ways of, reacting to that sort of thing. And I think that's fascinating. And it turns out the reason why they're doing all of this, was just to get their hands on Edith. Because they thought Tony Stark didn't deserve that kind of power. And they didn't believe that it was unfair of him to give that kind of power to a 16-year-old kid. And he's thinking, oh, so really they're the good guys, right? They're not so bad. No, because they plan to kill Nick Fury to cover all this up, just in case. Oh dear.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, after these last two Spider-Man films, that if I have a bad employer, they should watch themselves. Like,
this is why you make sure that all your employees sign a policy detailing no bullying in the workplace, because otherwise that's how you get supervillains.
Yeah.
And so, while this is going on, Peter is going off to Michelle to confess his feelings for her, and she goes along with him to this lovely bridge. It's very romantic. She talks about how they used to execute people here because she's Michelle and I love her. And then she says, okay, I know why you brought me out here. And he's like, you do? Yeah, to tell me you're Spider-Man. Ooh, what a cool callback to the comics. Because here's the thing. In the previous, in the Raimi movies, Mary Jane figures out that Peter Parker's Spider-Man because she sees him without the mask off. In the Andrew Garfield movies, he tells Gwen Stacy outright. But in the comics, Mary Jane figured out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. She knew for years and years and years, and didn't tell that she knew. And they sort of replicated that here, which is great. I wish they'd replicate the "Face It, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot" moment. Just give me that movie. Just please give me that. But, I'll take what I can get. And it's really cool. And he denies, like, what? No, I'm not Spider-Man. And you can tell that he's wrestling inside himself as to whether or not to actually tell her the truth and sort of panicking at the same time. Because this conversation did not go how he expected it would. Again, as you say, Peter Parker, not great at thinking on his feet.
Yeah.
But then she reveals a piece of debris that she retrieved during the battle with the Fire Elemental. And she's like, oh, what is it? Oh my god, it's a fucking holograph projector. Oh shit, they fucking Scooby-Doo'd us. Yeah, because remember that was the whole plot thing in... Wait, no, it wasn't. Right, okay, sorry. Right, so I mixed up my own personal headcanon with what actually happened. Remember the live-action Scooby-Doo movie?
Yes.
And remember how the monsters were real in that, despite the fact that in Scooby-Doo the monsters are almost always never real?
Yes.
Right, so I rewrote that movie in my head to make it like those monsters were actually people, like puppeteers, that had like holographs over them, as were demonstrated in a previous scene in the movie. Because there's a scene where Velma goes to like a spooky thing with like this guy detailing the history of the island, and they have like a picture in a flame of those monsters. And Velma points out there's holograph projectors there and there. I just thought, oh, that's a setup for later in the movie where it's going to reveal the monsters are actually the holograms. But no, that's not what happened, so I rewrote that movie in my head.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you could rewrite about that movie that would probably make it better.
This little aside was brought to you by Scott's Brain, where things are better. Always. Back to the actual movie. And so Peter realizes, holy shit, Mysterio was lying this whole time. And he says, okay, Michelle, yeah, actually, Spider-Man. That's a real thing. Okay, but it doesn't matter right now, because that Mysterio guy, the one that saved the whole world, yeah, didn't save the whole world, and he's probably going to do something really bad for it. And so it turns out Nick Fury is going to Berlin. I don't know why. Bad things happen in Berlin in superhero movies. And so it says, okay, so I need to go to Berlin. So, and it was just as well because at this point, due to the fact that several monsters have been attacking during this whole school trip, the parents of all the pupils have basically said, like, bring our kids back home right now where there are no monsters. Just a giant green guy and a guy who can control ants and shit, normal shit like that, and so he makes up a lie that he's visiting family in Berlin, gets away, and managed to make it to Berlin, and meets with Nick Fury. And he says, okay, so Quentin Beck, bad guy, holographic projector, oh shit. And Nick Fury's like, oh indeed, that is oh shit, that's a real problem. And then he reveals, uh-oh, the whole room is holographs. Mysterio already figured out that he was going there. And it's a great scene when actually Mysterio figures that out, because we get a little sneak peek into how Mysterio does what he does. It turns out he uses drones to project the holographs, and also he sort of choreographs it, kind of like a stunt show or a movie or something. It's really cool. Then he finds out that Peter Parker knows that he's betrayed him, and then he told a bunch of people, and he tells that guy who created the drones from the first Iron Man movie, just like, just want you to know, like, Peter Parker's got to die now, and that's on you. And I thought, that's so cool. It's such a cool character, because he's clearly a psychopath. He has no problem with killing a teenager, but he's not reluctant to do it. But he knows that he acknowledges that he'd rather not do it. I'm not saying that makes him a good character or a sympathetic character. I'm just saying that's an interesting character for him to have.
Yeah, I mean, Jake being mentally unstable people, and I feel like it just really shines in this movie and this performance.
This is the sequel to Demolition we never thought we'd get. Dear God. Do you see that movie of his, Demolition?
No, I was thinking he reminds me of his kind of psychoticness, kind of reminds me of him in Nightcrawler.
Yeah, or Donnie Darko or something like that. Jeez.
Yeah, exactly.
He's very...
Basically, any Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
He's good in some of them. Like, he's not a psychopath
But,
in
but the
Stronger.
one, but number are the ones where we're just not sure how sane he is.
That's true, yeah. And it's because it's interesting because here's the thing, the him being completely sane and on the level in this movie wouldn't have worked because a sane
No.
person would not have done all the things he did, you know. Maybe manipulate, maybe lie, but to this extent, no. So it works, and so he gets to Berlin ahead of Peter, and then we get one of the coolest scenes in the movie, him projecting all these illusions onto Peter, and it feels like it's ripped right from the comics, but times 100. It's incredible. It's like those scenes from Doctor Strange with all the zippy psychedelic stuff.
Yes.
But it's so cool. It's so cool. He gets in a snow globe that's actually Mysterio's head. And he gets like trapped in a high school, and there's corridors. It's impossible to do it justice just by talking. It's one of the things that needs to be seen. And
and I actually really liked this scene. I actually liked it more than the trippy stuff in the Doctor Strange movie. And it's one of those scenes where I just like sat there like loving how cool it was, and also just wondering, so how high were they when they wrote this scene?
Actually, I don't think they were high at all, because it feels very intricate and very planned, and it's such great imagination. I mean, hats off to the director John Watts returning from Homecoming, Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers, the writers, and the cinematographer Matthew J. Lloyd, and all the visual effects artists, obviously, because this works really well. It's so cool. It's worth the price of admission on its own. And then suddenly, just like that, it ends with Nick Fury shooting him in the back, shooting Quentin back in the back. And just like, shit, it's over. Thank God, phew. And Nick Fury's like, okay, Peter, look me in the eye, because I've only got the one. How many other people know about Beck? Because we need to contain this shit. Because he was all like on the news and shit, and this is a whole situation. We need to contain this. Peter's like, okay, so my friend Ned, possibly his girlfriend Betty, and my friend Michelle. And I thought, wait, what? Why would? Oh dear. Nick Fury starts laughing. Oh shit, it's still an illusion. Oh crap, and it starts all over again, but now he's saying he's gonna kill his friends as well. It's like, oh shit, you had me. Oh, I was fooled. You fooled me, movie.
It's so funny because both times they were like talking in private the first time before the first trippy sequence happened, and and then this one, I thought something was weird and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and yet I fell for it both times. I was like, son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch, they got me again. And
yeah, exactly.
And so with the deception revealed, he puts him in another illusion, only to get him hit by a train. And Peter manages to survive that somehow. And gets injured, falls unconscious in the train, presumably gets out of his costume. How does everyone in the world not know that he's Spider-Man? It's insane. And wakes up in the Netherlands, where the running joke is that everyone in the Netherlands is absolutely lovely and really nice. And having gone to university with a guy from the Netherlands, I can confirm that this is in fact the case. Shout out to Rudolph, you're still awesome.
I'm glad they were accurate in their depictions.
I mean, it's a stereotype, I know, but it's just it's just funny. I'm sorry. I mean, I've never been to the Netherlands or Holland or anything like that, but I'm told it's very, very nice there. And so gets out of the jail cell, and there's a bunch of other people in the jail cell, and they just relock the jail cell because they're not going to break out because they're too nice, you know?
Yes.
God, and Netherlands is the standard to which we should all aspire to be as a society. And so he gets out and it's like, oh shit, it was all fake. Crap. And it's like, I don't know, my friends are in danger. Mysterio doesn't know I survived, but I don't know who to call. If I call Nick Fury, I'm actually going to call Nick Fury. I'm going to give it away. He's probably not going to take my calls. So he calls the one person he can, Happy Hogan, who turns up in a Quinjet in a field of tulips next to a windmill because, Netherlands, where else is he going to park, and he very cleverly says, okay, tell me something that only you know, and I can't actually remember what he said. Oh, yeah. He talked about how when they went to Germany for the Civil War thing, Peter rented a pay-per-view movie that he knows was in fact an adult movie. And Peter Parker cuts him off there.
Yeah, that was funny. I really liked how, I just thought it was such a touching moment how he decides to call, of all people, Happy, and
and he gives him a hug.
Yeah.
He hugs him, and it's, oh god. And then I'm just thinking, Happy, run. Don't you know what happens to father figures to this kid?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's Happy should just run away. She's like, okay, that's it. I'm not going to be a father figure to that kid. I'll be a figure to this kid. What's your name? Harry Potter. No! Don't do it! And so they go in the Quinjet, and it's like, and Peter basically breaks down and says, I can't be Tony Stark. I can't be Iron Man. I can't do it. And Happy's like, Tony couldn't do it. He was all over the place. He was a mess. He's my best friend and all, but he second-guessed every decision he ever made, except for giving you those Edith glasses. And in fairness, that was probably the one decision he should have second-guessed, because, 16 years old, access to drones. That's a bad idea. But anyway, it is what it is, so let's just sort this shit out, okay? He gives, Happy sends a coded message to Fury, revealing that Quentin Beck is in fact a traitor. Peter creates a new suit using the onboard 3D printer they've got going on, and they show that Tony Stark had multiple Spider-Man suits designed, and Peter can combine all of them to make his own custom suit, which is a brilliant idea. And the suit they turn up with looks okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the red on black. I think it looks cool, but it looks too similar to the original Stark suit. It's fine. It does the job great, but they could have gone all out with this. There's a limitless possibilities they could have done. They could have drawn inspiration from previous Spider-Man suits in the comics. It would have been cool to have him have the armored Spider-Man suit, or I don't know, the Civil War suit from the comics, or the black suit. Fucking hell, they could have gone with the black suit or something. Yeah. No, they didn't. They get this new suit, and it looks fine. It's not a bad looking suit. It's just, it's there. And so it turns out that Quentin Beck is planning a final sort of Avengers level threat to really sell the idea that he's this world's superhero, because in his mind, the only people that are worth listening to, or he thinks that people think that the only people worth listening to are superheroes, because that's what people, yeah, because he's insane, and also kill Nick Fury and Peter's friends in the process. And where's this attack happening? In London. Fuck. First Dark Elves, now this. Shit. I know New York gets a beating in these movies.
I was gonna say, I mean, you guys haven't had as much a beating as New York City, so...
But we're second. We're second. Between London twice and Edinburgh once, the United Kingdom gets a bashing in these movies.
Yeah, but they spread it out at least a little bit. New York City just gets creamed every time.
I'm just imagining this one construction worker, one cleanup person who's there, finally, we finished sweeping up all the debris from that alien spaceship when Thor defended us from all those dark elves. At last, he turns around and sees a giant elemental monstrosity attacking the city. She's like, oh, come on! We just finished! Oh god! And do you know what the worst part is? Quentin Beck comes up with this like combined elemental. It's like they have the wind elemental, earth, fire, whatever
There.
water, air, water, whatever. Like heart. No. He's combined them all into a massive super elemental, and and here's the thing though, even though it's a hologram, the drones like simulate the damage around it with like missiles and bullets and stuff like that, and they actually attack Tower Bridge. Like fuck, like attack the Shard, attack the Gherkin, attack one of the newer buildings that can easily rebuild. Don't destroy the historic monument, you bastard! God, now what will London do for bridges?
I mean, that's what he was. That's why, Mysterio was smart. He knew to go after the historical monuments because it hits you in the feelings.
Yeah, damn right, hit me in my feelings. It's annoying. God, every time London gets attacked, it's always the landmarks. It's never the unmanned warehouses or the shitty parts of the East End or Piers Morgan's house. It's nothing that we wouldn't care to lose. It's always the good stuff.
I almost feel like you could thank Independence Day for that, because ever since children of the 90s saw like the fucking White House and like Empire State Building like blow up, it's like we want to see the good shit go.
I refuse to thank that movie. Anyway, so the Peter gets to London and starts taking out the drones from the inside of the illusion. Beck starts losing it, trying to contain the situation and deal with Fury. Fury, however, knows what's going on. A drone is revealed in front of him, but Maria Hill gets out a bazooka and shoots it out. Maria Hill is awesome in these movies. Like, I hated her in the comics, but I love her in this. Kobe Smulders is awesome. And Peter just tries to fight this thing. Meanwhile, drones are going after Michelle and Happy and Flash and Betty and Ned, who take refuge in the Tower of London. Okay. I mean, as far as secure places go, you could do worse, but you could do a bit better, I guess. And what I like about this is like the Royal Guards. I can't remember if they have an actual name or something. Just like those people with the big hats, the big furry hats. They show that they're not just standing around doing shit for like posing for photos with tourists. They have guns and they're taking out the drones. I like fucking that.
I defer to you on all of these expertise. I have never been to England, so.
Well, it's funny because
I just
it's like because at the very beginning of the movie, Ned is trying to convince him getting together with Betty, Peter not to ask out Michelle because he wants them to be American bachelors in Europe, and according to him, Europeans love Americans, and it's funny because we don't.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure all of America understood that was not true.
Yeah, I mean, we're fine with you when you stay in your own country. It's when you come over here, and particularly in London, because I make no apologies for this. You always go to those Royal Guards outside Buckingham Palace or wherever and try to take photos or try and get them to smile and shit like that, while they're just there trying to do their job. And we hate that.
Again, you can thank movies of the 90s for that by having the stereotypical, oh, it's a movie about going to London. We have to do a montage of them trying to make the guards laugh.
Fuck you, Mary Kate and Ashley. You ruined our culture. Because they made a movie about that. I'm
a 90s child, so I know exactly what you were talking about, and that is the movie I was thinking of when I said my previous statement.
Oh, God. I'm just glad that they kind of got that. Like, I just imagine one of them turning to the camera and saying, yeah, we got a fucking purpose, don't we? We're here to actually do a fucking job. And yeah, we do have guns in the UK. We're just not crazy about them, you fucking yank wankers. Brrr. That's what I imagined in my head. And so they take refuge with the crown jewels in a vault that easily accessible. No guards in there as well. I don't know. And Meanwhile, Peter's fighting the drones, managed to finally get to Quentin, and it seems like Quentin has been shot by one of the drones, but it turns out that's an illusion too, and Peter uses spider sense, confirmed in the movie. He calls it the Peter Tingle, but he's going to call it the fucking spider sense, and stops him from shooting. Only turns out he was actually shot. I don't know. And Quentin gives him like one last fuck you and then dies. And I couldn't help but thinking, like, I know they probably didn't want to repeat the last movie with the Vulture getting arrested, but I wouldn't have killed him off.
I wouldn't have either. That was another thing that was my big thing when watching this movie. Like, it's so hard because there's already theories going online about how, like, oh, he might still be alive because why was it so easy for Peter to retake control of Edith? Because before in the movie, it was like he had to actually say, like, I give these controls over, confirm. And in this one, and then at the end, he just rips the glasses off. So people are already saying, like, maybe that was a whole setup and maybe he's still alive. And I'm like, I fucking hope so, because I think he should have been kept around.
And maybe team up with future Scorpion and previous Vulture in a new movie. Maybe it would be nice to see. But anyway, while this is all going on, Reva, the guy who created the drones, who we saw from the first Iron Man movie, he escapes with a bunch of drone footage and a bunch of secret data, and escapes. It's like, ooh, what's he going to do with that? Peter, meanwhile, returns to New York City, and Happy tells Nick Fury, like, hey, so Peter's on board with the whole superhero thing, but he'll call you, okay? He needs to, like, take some time. And let's be honest, you owe him for saving your life and the whole city and possibly the world from Quentin Beck. Nick Fury's like, yeah, okay, all right, but if he ghosts me again, like, I'm coming after you, Happy. It's not going to be a good time. And Peter, meanwhile, begins a relationship with Michelle, and Ned and Betty break up because funny. That's basically why. And we then see Peter swinging through New York City, which, thinking about it, we haven't seen since the previous reboot movie, the second reboot movie, because we didn't really see that in Spider-Man Homecoming. We saw him swing around Queens, but not really New York proper. And so it was kind of cool to see it, and it brought me back to when I was a kid, when I was in the early 2000s, when I just got the Spider-Man game on PC. That was originally on the PS1, but the PC was better, shut up. And seeing the new Raimi movie, and reading all the comics, and it catapulted me back in time. It was a lovely moment. And he swings off, meets up with Michelle, and they go swinging through New York, and it's a lot of fun. And then the credits roll. I'm just thinking, okay, time for the mid-credit scene. I wonder what they're going to show. Maybe Reva with that data. No, we pick up right where we left off. With them swinging through town, but then he drops it down on the ground and is about to swing off when big news bulletin with speakers that I guess blares over New York. Like, I get why they would have visuals on that, but why would they have speakers? Is that a thing that happens? I don't know. And reveals that Quentin Beck had one final fuck you in store. He faked a bunch of footage with himself blaming Spider-Man for the elemental attack and revealing his true identity, which comes to us from the mouth of J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons!
Honestly, that was like the only moment in the theater where people were like, you could hear people's excitement. Was seeing J.K. Simmons again. And I'm just like, out of all the scenes in the movie, that was the one.
It's J.K. Simmons! He's playing J. Jonah Jameson, and he's bold in this. He doesn't quite have like the flat top, but it's still J. Jonah Jameson. It's like he never left. Oh God! And then they show his face on the screen, Peter's face, outing him as Spider-Man, and we end the movie like we did the last movie in Homecoming with someone saying, "What the fuck?" Da 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 da, blink, sweet Bob, whatever he goes. And it's just, oh my god, what a fucking cliffhanger. Fuck you. Oh god, we gotta wait till the next movie to see how that all turns out. Oh shit. Oh my god. Ah.
Yeah, we have to wait.
Oh god, I'm thinking, okay, so if they do another post-credit scene, because this was only a mid-credit scene, there's no way they could top that in terms of shock value. And then we see the post-credit scene, Maria Hill and Nick Fury driving off their car, and they shapeshift into Skrulls, the Skrulls from Captain Marvel, who turn out have been filling in for Nick Fury, who's just chilling out on a Skrull ship in space.
He needed a vacation, you know?
Clearly. And that's why all the decisions in this movie seem kind of off for Nick Fury.
Yes.
Because it was just Ben Mendelsohn, pretending to be Nick Fury. Oh my god, I've never seen so many plot holes fixed in one moment.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Oh my god. And it's like, so we're going to see Nick Fury in space. Is he hanging out with Captain Marvel? Are we going to see more of the Skrulls? Oh my god, 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 oh my god. And it's just like, oh shit. I needed a moment to calm down. I'm just like sitting there in the theater, just like, oh, too much awesomeness. And it's, I mean, oh god, I'm shaking just thinking about it now. And it shows when Marvel allows their writers and the directors to not so much go off the rails, but do something really kind of shocking. Actually, it works really well.
Yeah.
And oh god, and that's the movie. That's it. It was. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It does have its problems. Like you say, missing a couple of emotional beats, kind of rushing some places, and some stuff that could have worked better if they just done it a slightly different way. But I don't think that's enough to call it a bad movie. I don't think it's enough to call it just a good movie. I think it's a great movie. It does what it set out to do, and the parts that matter work really well.
Yeah, and that's why it's just one of these conflicting movies for me, because it's like, you know, again, like, I know it's good. It's just that there are problems with it that I have. But I think at the end of the day, for me, it kind of just goes back to what I think our conversation had got cut short on the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse podcast, in that I just want to start seeing an older Peter Parker. I think this movie kind of confirmed for me that I don't need to see a young Peter Parker anymore. I want to see what adult Peter Parker will do.
Well,
I mean, obviously,
here's the thing, though. He's going to grow up. I think Tom Holland's young enough that they're going to see him grow up. And so eventually we will get that. And, you know, if you want an adult Peter Parker, just read the comics. You know, it's there. So, I mean, here's the thing. We had adult Peter Parker for so long in the movies with the Raimi movies and the Andrew Garfield movies. They kind of, they had him in high school in the first movie, but he spent so little time in high school, it's like, who even cares? So, I'm glad we got this, because for the longest time, Peter Parker was a kid in high school in the original run of the comics. And in fact, they really played like him graduating as a huge deal, because back then in comics, there wasn't so much of a full progression in terms of a character's life. You know, the people just tend to stay where they are, same age, in the exact same place, and very few of them grew up. We saw Peter Parker grow up in the comics, and maybe we get to see him grow up in these movies. As long as the MCU's around, and now that they've got Spider-Man, and they've wrested him from Sony's clutches, or at least with their deal they have, they could keep making Spider-Man movies, potentially, for as long as they like. And so we could see him grow up, and one day we will get him, if it's written well, him dealing with adult problems. You know, because he's at that sort of stage in his life where, like, he's not long for leaving high school. It's like the adult stuff is starting to encroach in his life now, but it's not quite there yet. And
Right.
I think that's cool. I think it's great, especially for a superhero movie, because we frequently get the coming of age thing, but we rarely get the on the cusp of the coming of age movie. And I think it kind of works here.
Yeah, no, it definitely works. Like I said, I mean, for me growing up, it was like I never really considered especially like Spider-Man 3 from the Raimi films, like I never really considered that adult Peter Parker. And even with Andrew Garfield's movies, like I kind of, because he was kind of like, it was at the, even though he didn't look it, it was at the end of high school into college,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of like cut off. And I feel like it was kind of the same thing with Sam Raimi. It was pretty much like end of high school, early college, maybe a little bit after college. Like I want to see like Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, adult Peter Parker, but it's just a waiting game at this point. I just hope that they
I mean, we're gonna get more Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse
exactly.
movies, so yeah, we got that. That's good, satisfying. And yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But I like this version. It's cool to see where he's going to go. I just hope that the next movie isn't about him searching for a father figure. In Spider-Man, are we nearly there home yet? I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna call. I don't know why they kept going with the home aspect, but who knows? And so that's the movie. Tom Holland as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, great. Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, great. Zendaya, Michelle, great. Kevin Smulders, great. Jon Favreau, James Smoove. It's Jacob Batalon who plays Ned Leeds, great. Marissa Tomei, barely in the movie, but she's great because she's Marissa Tomei and sunshine bleeds out of her eyeballs. And Jake Gyllenhaal as Quentin Beck, great. I don't think there's a single character that has a bad actor attached to them. There's this one actor who's like part of, she's like takes care of Quentin Beck's like real Mysterio costume, because he's the one that he wears, and it's like a VFX suit, which I love. Like you see before they had the green screen stuff on, and they have his actual one. And she's an actor that I've seen many times in British television and British movies. I can never remember her name though. It's going to annoy me forever. There's so much about this movie that we could talk about. So many little things that are so cool. We've talked about quite a few of them, to be honest, but we're running out of time. There's just one last thing I want to talk about before we end. Because this movie came out recently, Insomniac gave out a free update for their Spider-Man PS4 game, featuring the upgraded suit and the stealth suit. So you can now play those suits in the game, which is awesome. Which I've done today, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the game, but I've already seen people like playing it with the suits on, and it looks cool.
You get to see them up close. You get to swing around. I like it. I've talked about this before, but can we just briefly talk about how awesome that game is? I know you haven't got it, but I could recommend you get it if you're at all into Spider-Man, because it's the quintessential Spider-Man movie made into a game, but with a few twists thrown in, and they're really good twists. And it's like, if I wanted to introduce someone to Spider-Man for the first time, this is what I'd show them.
Yeah, I mean, I actually got the game for my sister for her birthday because she loves Spider-Man. It's on my list of things to do, you know, but it's one of those things where video games usually take the back seat in my life, and I've got a stack of PS4 games that I have to get to. So one of them being Witcher 3, which I know is going to take forever. So we'll see when I get to.
You need to block out some time for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't even started that game, so you know.
I mean, I'm saving up to get a Nintendo Switch and get a Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order, because I fucking love Ultimate Alliance. Love it so much.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to get a Switch so I could finally play the Breath of the Wild, but you know, that probably won't happen for a while.
Fucking expensive. Breath of the Wild goes for like 50 quid over here. Don't know what that is in US dollars, but it's fucking a lot. It's fucking expensive. I know it's a big game. I know it's a long game, but it's expensive. Especially when like you can beat it in like half an hour if you're really good.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, on that note, there's not really much else we could talk about. They said that potentially there's going to be a third movie dealing with Peter Parker's final year of high school, but beyond that, we just don't know anything because we don't really know much about what's going to be happening. We know they're working on lots of different things for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We know that now they're going to be working on like the Eternals, which no one cares about. Like I've read Eternal stuff, and there's been some really good Eternal stuff. But
I've actually been online while discussing this because the Comic-Con schedule for San Diego just came out, which I will be attending. And it turns out that I don't know which day yet, but they just announced that they will be revealing their plans for the Marvel Cinematic Universe at Comic-Con this year. So that will be in a couple of weeks. So we will probably know more then.
yeah, we'll keep you updated, capers, when we get more information. Fingers crossed, Fantastic Four. Fingers crossed, Fantastic Four. Oh god, because I remember, I feel like I'm the guy that people say be careful what you wish for to, because I was one of the people that was going saying we need a Fantastic Four reboot, and you know what, we got a Fantastic Four reboot, and the less said about that the better. So I'm hesitant to call for another reboot now, even though I really want it. Please be good. But on that note, on that slightly strained note, I think we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Jillian, for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And if you enjoy the show, Capers, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and... sorry, let's start that again. And if you enjoy the show, Capers, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes, like the last episode Jillian was in, which was...
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. We've done over 100 of these, Capers. What do you want from us?
We did the reading the Batman script one. I think that was the last one I was a part of. And then I think the one before that was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, so it's a good job we got you back for this one then. What a happy
exactly.
coincidence.
I'm pretty sure that's the order.
What a happy coincidence. And you can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, or at podcapers.com. We have a Patreon. Check out the rewards. Patreon.com/AP2HYC. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC, or email us at podcapers@AP2HYC.com. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses. Those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. Cue the music!